Assalamualaikum and hello, this is Group Falcon. We will present a case study of an incident in the oil and gas industry in Malaysia. In October 2020, an offshore work barge, also known as the Dayang Topaz, sunk at the Baram field in Malaysia waters after crashing into an oil platform which resulted in 2 men's death. According to the evidence gathered by the Malaysian Maritime Department, the Dayang Topaz collided with the Baram B oil platform when it went out of control after one of its anchor cable broke at 7.7 nautical miles from Kuala Baram. It is being said that the anchor snapped due to the rough weather that has rained heavily since the night before the incident. One of the survivors also mentioned that there were strong winds and huge waves which led to the vessel lose control and hit an offshore oil platform. A total of 125 crewmen were ordered to jump overboard into the rough sea to save their life. Meanwhile, 62 others maintained their position on board. Another offshore vessel, the Sapura Constructor, reported that it has received an emergency signal from Dayang Topaz and quickly informed the Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency to quickly conduct a rescue operation. The Brunei National Search Agency and local fishermen also lent some help during the rescue operation. Overall, there were 7 rescue boats, including the one that were sent out by coordinated nearby ships owned by Petronas and Shell, to the site. The operation was a success despite the turbulent sea conditions. However, during the rescue operations, 2 were found dead due to drowning. The rest of the crew members were rescued and squeezed in the life raft.
The main cause of the injuries on the men who jumped overboard can be pinpointed to the turbulent weather conditions at the time. With waves reaching up to 6 meters in length, it made it hard for the crew members who jumped overboard to stay afloat, resulting in the aforementioned deaths of the 2 crew members who drowned in the incident. In addition, the harsh weather conditions also made further rescuing difficult, and in total, the rescue personnel had to spend 3 hours stranded at sea. The management response to the incident was swift, in spite of the harsh weather, with the Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency to be the first to arrive on the scene. With help in the form of boats from Petronas and Shell, the MMEA used 3 of its assets to gather and save the vulnerable crew members at sea. And any affected crew members received immediate treatment by health personnel after reaching the Miri port. Last but not least, as reported by Petronas in their official statement, the incident did not cause any impact to the environment, and they will continue to ensure reliable gas supply to consumers in the event of any gas supply interruptions. Apart from the already stormy weather faced by Sarawak, the weather was made worse by Typhoon Molave, a cyclone that caused considerable and widespread damage in the Philippines. It was for this reason one of the anchors of the Dayang Topaz snapped, causing it to ram into the oil platform and giving the crew members the notion that the vessel was sinking. The threat of the vessel sinking was enough to cause panic to spread among the crew, leading to 125 out of the 187 crew members to jump overboard. And in a high-stakes situation, preventing confusion and miscommunication should be a priority. If the crew members remain calm and collected together, perhaps the casualties and injuries could have been prevented or avoided. Apart from this, the snapping of one of the anchors was the main catalyst of the entire incident. Thus, proper management and quality control of the vessel's facilities, especially in cases where harsh weather is a concern, could help prevent future accidents from occurring.
Now we are going to talk about the potential consequences of this incident. Well, for the first point, what was the worst thing that could have happened? The worst thing that could have happened was the snapping of more than one of the anchors on the maintenance vessel, Dayang Topaz, which resulted into the sinking of the vessel itself, and every crew member on board to jump overboard onto the ocean, and it could have drowned more crew members due to the harsh weather. Next is what prevented from the worst from happening. There are 2 things that prevented it. One was the calmness of the remaining 62 crew members that stayed on board and not jump overboard of the Dayang Topaz, and 2 was the swiftness of the authorities to come rescue the 125 crew members on the ocean that jumped overboard. How often can an event like this to occur? The recurrence potential. This event does not occur frequently, it has a low probability to occur because there are many factors that could contribute to the snapping of the anchors. One example is the pure maintenance of the Dayang Topaz from the company Petronas that owns it. Two is due to the harsh weather, it snapped the anchor, or maybe also three due to human error. Next is, what was the worst injury or damage which could have ever resulted? Well, the incident itself caused 2 casualties. Both are death by drowning, so I guess the worst injury that could have resulted is the majority of the 125 crew members that jumped overboard to drown also with the 2 casualties. If the authorities was too late, or if the weather was too harsh for them. Alright, for the last point, how many people that could have been affected by this incident? A total of 187 crew members that could have affected if the remaining 62 crew members jump overboard also, but it didn't, so only 125 crew members been affected.
For recommendation, one of the prioritized action is rescuing the people in the emergency site. This is to make sure that everyone comes out alive, because people's life will always be the first priority in any situation. The second one is the organization should plan for emergencies. The purpose of emergency response plan is to establish procedures to emergencies so that the employers and employees can react faster whenever an emergency happens. The risk assessment needs to be reviewed and the safety statement also needs to be updated. This is to ensure that the risk of staff being harmed by work-related violence has not changed and that no further control measures are needed. The hazard analysis can be applied in this situation to identify hazard and recommending corrective actions. The aim of the risk assessment is to evaluate hazards, then remove that hazard or minimize the level of its risk by adding control measures. In this case, with poor weather condition as the hazard, the organization should think of ways to remove or minimize the impact of that hazard. There are many ways to improve the workplace health and safety for both employers and employees. The first one is to train the employees very well. Comprehensive training is a must for preventing workplace injury. Make sure that all of the employees have access and complete all safety training for the positions. The second one is to maintain emergency communication equipment. Well-conceived and effectively delivered emergency messages can help ensure public safety, protect property, facilitate response efforts, and elicit cooperation. The last one is to have regular meetings on workplace safety. Regular meetings to review safety rules and discuss prevention can keep workplace safety top of mind, so that when something does happen, everyone knows what to do right away. Since plans and procedures should always be reviewed and updated, regular meetings can make sure that everyone knows the updated procedures for emergency.
Next, we will talk about workplace acts and regulations related to the accident and incident. According to Occupational Safety and Health Act OSHA 1994, a person who contravenes the provisions of general duties of employers and employees shall, on conviction, be liable to a fine. For employees, penalty for failure to comply the provisions will be punished with Rm 1000 or fine 3 months imprisonment or both. For employer, penalty for failure to comply the provisions will be punished with 50,000 ringgit Malaysia or 2 years imprisonment or both. Thus, the employers and employees should know their obligations and responsibilities of themselves related to the accident or incident. General duties of an employer is to provide information, instruction, training, and supervision to ensure that all activities are carried out safely and without health risks, like adverse weather. Then, general duties of an employee is to wear or use at all times any protective equipment or clothing provided by the employer and not to intentionally, recklessly, or negligently interfere with any item provided or activity carried out in the interest of OSH in pursuance of the OSHA 1994. And that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for your interest and attention.